Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's devotional. Just a quick thought for you today. There was an article that was posted. Well, I say it was posted. It came up on my Google feed. The etymology and meaning of Noel, and I clicked on it because I was curious to see what it had to say. And you would think, oh well, this will be really informative. The first point that I want to make about there's two main points of our devotional today. One thing is the first one is you can't believe everything you read on Google or on the internet. The etymology and meaning of Noel says it's a term signifying the holiday season. Noel comes to us from the Latin verb nasi, meaning to be born. In the book of Ecclesiastes, the birth of Jesus is called natalis. A variation of this word, nael, made its way into Old French as a reference to the Christmas season and later into Middle English as Noel. Today, it refers both to Christmas and to Christmas carols. Now, I thought that was really interesting, and I went, wow, I never knew that. So I started doing a little bit of research on that because I thought, I kind of want to see what connection they're making to Ecclesiastes regarding the birth of Jesus. There isn't one. But there is no messianic reference in Ecclesiastes to the birth of Jesus. Not only that, but the term natalis is Latin, not Hebrew. So I don't know. I think they got a little confused. Either they meant to include a different book, first of all, and they just were referencing maybe the Latin translation of the Bible in some form or fashion. But there is no reference to the birth of Jesus in Ecclesiastes. I looked, and it certainly would have been news to me because I've never heard about it before. But as far as I can tell, there isn't one. If you know of one, let me know. However, when you go to, for instance, dictionary.com, let me bring this up. Oh, there we go. The term Noel, it means it's another word for Christmas or Christmas carol, but Noel is from the French, but it originates from the Latin natalis or natalus, a birthday, and it says see natal when prenatal, postnatal, that sort of thing, and I thought that was kind of interesting, because we're familiar with the word natal, maybe not on its own, but prenatal, postnatal, that sort of thing we do know. And so that's natalis or natalis. That's kind of the origin of Noel. And there is no connection, as far as I can tell, in Ecclesiastes. Again, maybe they meant a different book, but it would have had to have been a Latin reference, maybe a Catholic reference, because Catholicism uses the Latin translation of the Bible. So maybe that's what they're referring to. Solomon does refer to the day of your birth as being, or the day of your death being greater than the day of your birth. Or he refers to there's a time to be born and a time to die. There's a couple references to being born, but there's no reference to Jesus, no messianic aspect to Ecclesiastes, as far as I can tell. Now, having said that, it is the holiday season, and kind of what some of what's you're hearing references to a Christmas carol and Noel, and certainly the religious aspect of it is in full swing as well, because this is the season for that, for according to many people. So, just to kind of serve as a reminder and kind of an assist to help us remember to maybe bring up some things to our friends if they ask about what we're going to be doing what our church is going to be doing for Christmas, or are we doing a Christmas play or something like that. You might ask them, or you might just reference or say or mention something along the lines of, I first of all, we don't know when Jesus was born, because the scriptures don't say what the date was. Okay. And I think there's a reason for that. There's a very wise reason why God did not include the date of the birth of Jesus. But also the fact that the nativity scenes, and there's our very, very abrupt segue from Noel and Natalis and natal to nativity. The nativity scenes depict three wise men at the manger. Jesus is a newborn, with the animals and whatnot. Well, yeah, obviously, and we've mentioned this before with our, in sermons and things like that at our congregation. But in Matthew chapter 2 and verse 1, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. So they come to Herod. He's troubled. He says, okay, I want you to find out when this is going to be, where it's going to be in Bethlehem and Judea. It is written. And so he secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And so he sent them to Bethlehem, and he says, hey, I want to find out. I want to go and worship him, when he really didn't. He wanted to kill him. So here comes the star, and it stood over where the young child was, and they rejoiced with exceeding joy, the wise men did. And when they'd come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So they were warned in a dream not to return to Herod. So then Herod was angry and upset. And we see in verse 16, he was deceived by the wise men. He sent forth to put to death all the male children from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. Now, every reference to the wise men is just wise men. There's no 3 wise men or 4 wise men. There are 3 gifts regarding the frankincense and myrrh, which presumably that's where they receive, or that's where people kind of extrapolate there was 1 gift per wise man. But it doesn't say that. There was wise men, however many there may have been. There could have been 20, we don't know. But there could have been 2 wise men, more than 1 is 2. At least 2. And then also you've got the fact that Jesus was in the house. Here in verse 11. When they'd come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother. So they weren't at the quote-unquote nativity scene where Jesus was actually born. They weren't at the manger. And we're told that Herod determined that he could have been up to 2 years old based on the time that the wise men told them when the star first appeared. So it could have taken them that long to get here, for one thing. But Jesus could have been at least 2 years old, or up to 2 years old, at the point where the wise men show up. So all of that to say, the nativity scene is not biblically accurate. And it's one of those things which I don't believe we should be depicting or having plays showing the birth of Jesus in some way, and exalting a day that the Lord doesn't tell us to exalt. Okay, the event of his birth certainly should be celebrated, but the event of Jesus' birth should be celebrated, first of all, every day, because he was born that he came into the world, but he was born to fulfill the plan of God. That plan of God included his death. We especially celebrate that on Sunday at the Lord's Supper, because the implication of the fact that he was put to death, he was killed, he was crucified, he was resurrected and ascended into heaven. Certainly he was flesh and blood, his body, his blood. All that implication is that he was born. But the importance of the New Testament places the memory, do this in remembrance of me. Well, Jesus didn't reference his birth, do this in remembrance of me. He referenced what was going to happen regarding his death. And he wanted that not done just once a year or twice a year. He wanted that done every Lord's Day. And it's important for us to remember these details. Now, a lot of people will just argue, it doesn't matter that it's not accurate. It's the thought that counts. Well, Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, and at the end of Matthew chapter 7, he says in verse 21, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Okay, so we'll have to do his will. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. There's nothing here in verse 22 to suggest that these people are lying. I think Jesus is referencing people who really did do many things in the name of Jesus. It's the thought that counts, Lord. Look at all the good things, the good works that we did in your name. But then Jesus says in verse 23, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. So that term lawlessness, it literally means that which is without law. Or another way to say that is that which is without authority. You have to do the will of my Father in heaven. Okay, good intentions don't count, and certainly even as it pertains to the thought. Okay, well, it's the thought that counts. We did these things in your name, Jesus, even though you didn't tell us to do these things. You didn't tell us that that we're supposed to uh, have widows' homes and orphans' homes. You didn't tell us that we're supposed to have instrumental music and aspects like that. But it's the thought that counts. Well, you didn't do things the way I told you to. You didn't have authority for the things that you did. He who does the will of my Father is going to have the authority from the scriptures to do what you do. And since we don't have authority from the scriptures to remember the birth of Jesus, the day of the birth of Jesus, or to depict it in some way, or to reenact it, or to celebrate that day, then I don't believe that we should. As far as I'm concerned, verse 22, this same idea of having the nativity scenes and church plays and all that stuff fits right into verse 22 along with everything else that is without authority. All right. And there's so much more that we could talk about here, but I just wanted to bring that up as a thought because, like I said, that Noel thing came up on my found that website and whatnot, and it first of all was misinformation because there is no connection to Ecclesiastes as far as I can tell, and but second of all, the fact that now's the time when people start really gearing up for Christmas and people want to start talking about it, especially religious people. They know you're religious, and maybe opportunities will come up to kind of share details that maybe they are not have not heard or haven't really thought about, and then maybe that'll lead to more serious conversations about why do we do that in the first place, or why do you do that in the first place. All right, our next devotional, Lord willing, will be on Monday at 6:30. I hope to see you all then. Thank you, everybody.